He's done another podcast. David Moyes has done another podcast. And if he's not too careful, he's going to be appearing on Hamish Chat soon. Not because he wants to, just by default. There'll be nowhere else for him to go. He's burning through these generic football podcasts. There's a man dipping his toe in the media world. When he retires, I'm betting on him to appear on reality TV somewhere. Strictly Come Dancing, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Maybe Celebrity Master Chef. You could see him cooking, couldn't you? There's a man enjoying the media spotlight. For the first 2 years or something, I didn't see him do anything. Then suddenly he's popping up left, right and centre recently, doing all these podcasts and interviews. Anyway, he's not coming on Hamish Chat. He's more than welcome if he wishes to. But I appreciate it's incredibly unlikely. But where he has been is the Michael Calvin Football People podcast. It's a 15-minute segment discussing himself, West Ham and our situation in an hour-long podcast. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to go listen to it. It's around about the 27th minute you want to start listening to it for the David Moyes part. But naturally, when he or other Premier League managers or players do these types of interviews, it's going to create headlines for the right or wrong reasons, and David Moyes has done certainly that. I've seen the text format quotes and articles over the last couple of days, but I went and listened to the podcast, and it's similar to the Michael Antonio one a couple of weeks ago. I would advise to go listen to it rather than read it, because the text format, it removes tone, it removes context. You see what they say and not how they say it. Usually it's two completely different things. However, there is some things he has said that still got my back up a little bit in regards to this one. The first of all, he's changed his tune. He's now talking about West Ham being in a relegation battle, being down the bottom of the table, not where we want to be. And he speaks about it saying, hopefully I get a few more games. So it sounds like a very recent podcast and a manager that knows he's under pressure. But the reason he discusses this is because of the question. The question he gets asked is, how do you cope with the pressure? Because they make a reference point to Brendan Rodgers. They interviewed him a few weeks prior when Leicester were down at the bottom of the table and Rodgers was one of the favourites to get sacked, and Brendan Rodgers basically said it's automatic. I essentially call all my experience without doing that. I just go into this automatic mode. Do you do that, as in David Moyes? And that's why he starts discussing it in about West Ham being down the bottom of the table. But he's changed his tune. During the World Cup, just as the Premier League football was away to return, David Moyes sat there and said, we're not in a relegation battle. In fact, I see us challenging for those European football spots or something similar. Now, what I felt he meant when he said that was top half of the table. Challenging for Europe is different from qualifying for Europe, isn't it? Well, I think it is anyway. And I think he was referring to just challenging part, top half. But still, even just taking that, he's changed that tune completely. And the funny thing is, between now and then, we've not actually been that bad. The performances have improved. The results have picked up. Was it 1 loss in 7 games in 2023? So we're actually looking not too shabby at the minute. But as soon as that January transfer window is closed, it feels like now I'll start admitting we're in a relegation battle, because the time to replace me is gone. The best time to replace me is gone. So now I can start speaking about us being in a relegation battle. But his tune's changed massively. But the one thing that annoyed me the most, and it's not just the David Moyes thing here, it's tied in with Mark Noble. Last week, Mark Noble discussed it on the Ben Foster podcast about Declan Rice leaving. He basically said, we're West Ham, what can we do about it? You know, players that want to play Champions League football are going to have to leave, we're West Ham. And David Moyes has gone along with that a little bit as well. And he basically said, well, top 6, 7, you're not getting that. You know, we are what we are. We're a side that is going to struggle at times and be down the bottom of the table. Now, he doesn't say it in those words, but that's the messaging he's conveyed. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with David Moyes in some regards, just like I don't disagree with what Mark Noble's saying in some regards. But I think a fan having an opinion is completely different to professionals working at the club conveying that message, because a fan's opinion is just that, it is an opinion. So if I sit here, or you sat there and said, well, actually, I think the West Ham can just challenge for the top 10 every season and stay away from relegation, that's okay, that's where we're at, then that's different to having the sporting director, the manager of the football club come out and say, well, actually, you should be grateful if we finished 17th, because that's what it feels like we're getting told at the minute. That actually, you're not allowed to be ambitious. You're not allowed to want this or want that, because we're only West Ham. What do you expect us to do? And I just find it quite contradictory what they're saying at the minute, because they keep talking about bringing in these young players. David Moyes speaks about it in this podcast, about how we have to do things a little bit differently. We don't have the money to challenge with the top teams. I mean, factually incorrect. it's factually incorrect. This season, we're the third highest net spenders. Over the last few years, if you go, doesn't matter how long you take it, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, West Ham are always at the top of that table. We do spend money. We do have money to spend. We just spend it poorly, usually. It's two completely different things. But then Moyes then speaks about it in this podcast. Well, we're going to have to buy players. Essentially, we're going to have to buy top players before the top players. We're going to have to identify talent when they're younger, and we're going to have to identify that talent quicker than other Premier League clubs that can't afford to pay 80 million for a player. We're going to have to go get them now, and then the big clubs will come and get them, going by Mark Noble's messaging. Now, I accept that. I think as a transfer strategy, I think that's possibly the best thing West Ham can possibly do. Identify these players when they're in their early 20s that will make it at the top, that will be good enough for Man City one day, and go get them now. We all know one club in the Premier League that's doing it. David Moyes refers to Brighton in the podcast about how Brighton and Brentford do things differently to other clubs. But the worst thing is, he speaks about bringing in these players like what Brighton do, but we don't do it. And then he says Brighton do things differently to how West Ham do it. But you've just spoken about the Brighton model, about how that's what you want to do at West Ham, but you're doing something completely different. And this is what frustrates me. The messaging is my biggest bugbear out of that David Moyes podcast, because I know we're not good enough to be finishing in the top 6-7 season after season after season. We're not. We need incredible investment in order to take that leap. We need to do that. I'm not expecting those top 6 finishes every single season. Like I said, if we could finish in the top 10 every season and challenge for cup competitions, that is good with me. That, to me, is the next level. But this goes all the way back to 2016. I can't help but doing it. And this is where Moyes and David Moyes are culpable. Now, David Moyes wasn't the man at the helm when we moved. It was Slaven Bilic. He wasn't the manager before that. It was Sam Allardyce. So, in regards to the messaging as to why we're moving to Stratford, David Moyes was never part of that. But it's the club's philosophy. And David Moyes and now Mark Noble are mouthpieces for the club's philosophy, for what their strategy is, what their long-term vision is for this club. They should be singing off the same hymn sheet. And arguably, they are singing off the same hymn sheet. I just don't like it. But we go back to 2016. Well, before that, we got told we're moving before that. But summer 2016 is when we moved. And essentially, the whole purpose to move was to go and challenge with those clubs that we couldn't compete with, allegedly, while we were still at Upton Park. So we had to move in order to open doors. Well, we've done the move, but those doors remain shut. In fact, those doors are locked more now than they were when we moved. And we're getting told by the manager and the sporting director, oh, sorry, we can't join that group of clubs. We're not rich enough, we're not good enough, we're not big enough. Well, actually, rubbish. We've got a budget for the top 6-7 of the Premier League in terms of transfer spend. We've got a stadium capacity for the top 6-7. We don't own the stadium, granted that's an issue, but the capacity is there, the attendances are there. And to hear the sporting director and the manager come out and basically say in the last week or so, tough. Because that's what it feels like. It's basically saying, whoa, you what? You want top 10 and challenge? Forget that. You're not getting that. You're going to get 17th and you're going to be grateful for 17th. Now, that's not what they're saying, but that's how I'm made to feel listening to both of those. And I'm fed up of it, to be honest with you. But like I said, the transfer thing, when David Moyes was speaking about transfer strategy, he was describing what Brighton do and then saying, but Brighton do something differently. But you've just described what they do. And then you're saying you want to do what Brighton do, but then said Brighton do things different. It just doesn't make sense. It is baffling. It's absolutely baffling. But what I will say, in sort of credit to David Moyes, the one thing that's sort of been ignored in the written articles, if you like, is that he does say that West Ham are a major club and can be doing a lot better. He doesn't say that where we are at the minute in the league is where West Ham should be. He does suggest that it's not been good enough and that we need to be doing better. I don't think anybody is under any illusions that this is West Ham's sort of rightful place in the Premier League. But he's responsible for it. That's the real issue here. You are the manager. You're the one that can mould this. Yes, you did well to keep us up when you first came in. Yes, I think he's done fantastically well to get us into European football 2 years on the trot. I think it's a marvellous achievement some of the best memories I've had supporting West Ham have been under David Moyes as a manager. But we've also gone backwards. We've gone backwards massively in the last 12 months with him at the helm. And he's almost taking responsibility for the success of West Ham in the last 3 years, as he describes it. The upward trajectory. Yeah, that's me. That was me. Yeah. What about the downward one, which has happened pretty sharply? And like, oh, well, you know, not me. There's reasons for that, because the big boys have got lots of money. Well, we've got lots of money. We've got lots of money. We've just spent it poorly. Well, actually, I don't even think we have spent it that poorly in the summer. We have bought in talented players. And I do feel there's an element to me that feels sorry for David Moyes in some regards, because Gerrard was his purchase, his number one signing in the summer, and he's unbelievable. And had we had him fit for the whole season, I don't think we'd be where we are. Perhaps we would be, but I don't think we would be. I think we'd have more points on the board, and we possibly would be sitting comfortably in the middle of the table at the minute. Maybe not knocking on the doors of European football, but certainly not knocking on the trapdoor to the Championship either. I think we'd be sort of cruising along, and we'd be looking forward to the Conference League, coming round thinking, do you know what, we're in a good position here, we can focus on European football this season. But at the minute we can't, because we're looking over our shoulder at the handful of teams that are behind us. And that, the podcast thing just wound me up a little bit. Now, the one thing I think David Moyes is most guilty of in this is, I guess, being A, completely honest in his opinions, and B, just doing too many of these podcasts. I know it's a bit hypocritical considering what I'm doing right now, but I just think every time he does something like this, he paints a target on his back. And when he comes out with stuff, you think, well, hang on a minute, this isn't matching up what you've said previously. And that's without me even bringing up the fact that he's turned up at the door and said, winning is what I do. Well, you're not doing much of that lately, are you, sunshine? With your team that you've assembled, and it's cost us hundreds of millions to do so as well. But on its own, the David Moyes thing probably wouldn't have angered me that much if it didn't have the Mark Noble thing last week. And I think when I put the two of them together, it just frustrates me. Now, the one highlight from that segment regarding David Moyes is, once again, and he's been quite consistent in doing this, he speaks of his ambition to win a trophy. And obviously we're still in a couple of competitions this season. You don't have to believe that we can win it. You don't have to do that. But I do think Moyes will take the Conference League seriously when it comes round. That could be a dangerous thing, given the situation that we're in regards to the Premier League. That's why I'm praying we can get some points on board between now and then, so when the competition does come round, we can take it seriously. But Moyes does, again, speak about his ambition to win a trophy. Just said he said he's got room at home for a trophy in his cabinet or something like that. And it's nice to hear, because this is the best chance. This is the last chance for him. After West Ham, I'm not sure he's going to have a job this good. Well, and I'm quite confident he won't have a job this good. I don't think he means the Papa John's trophy either to win that one. I don't think he's going to go down to League 2, start winning the Papa John's trophy and say, told you I was going to do it. I don't think he's referring to that. I think he's referring to a major honour. And this is the best chance. This is the last chance he's going to get. But to do that, first of all, we've got the short-term issue, which is getting out this relegation battle, which is looking tricky because of him. And second of all, we need to sort out this sort of mid-term and long-term vision of this football club. And David Moyes is responsible for that, but not just David Moyes, it's Mark Noble as well. And what I've heard from Moyes and Mark Noble, it just feels a little bit like we're little West Ham. Challenging for European places, can't do that. No, we can't do that. We don't have the money, we don't have the power, we're not that big a club. Well, actually, I think we are. It's just that the people in charge don't believe it, and I think that's what I'm most disappointed in. Anyway, the worst thing is I was going to do this video, but I listened to Gonzo's one earlier and it wound me up listening to that one. So, calm, shush. Anyway, let's look forward to Sunday. 3 points are on offer against Tottenham. I don't think we're going to lose that game. I still do not think we're going to lose. But if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts on the David Moyes segment as well. Like I said, links in the description. You can go listen to it yourself. 27 minutes, 30 seconds. Skip to there, and then you'll get the David Moyes part. Catch you in a bit.